Storytime with Frog is the review of one woman's life who has lived the spectacle of FROG, or fully reliant on God. Not a storybook or Cinderella story, but in fact, the full history of ups and downs, joys and trials of life, the human condition, and this one woman's journey guided by her strength and faith in God. It's not all tulips and roses, but a beautiful rosebush has plenty of thorns. Life is designed to be this way, even when led by Him. Join us for Storytime with Frog with Veda McGregor and Rob Dalton.
All right, welcome back. This is Storytime with Frog. It's so nice to have you with us once again.
Welcome.
Episode 6. I'm Rob Dalton.
Veda McGregor.
And we like to end it with Ribbit, but we'll
do.
Start with that today.
Ribbit.
Yeah, we're having fun.
Welcome back.
We are gathered again for more information and more knowledge, more storytelling. This is PG-13, as you've already found out. But we're hoping by now you're really invested emotionally, not just time-wise, but and take the opportunity to be sure and tell a friend or share, forward it to someone else who you think may find it interesting or captivating. We're going to get into the older stages of life with you.
Older stages. Here we go.
There's still some family elements that we're going to bring up, but mainly for background. But we're getting into mid-late teens, and I say that because how old were you when you got married?
16.
16. So it's not like we're moving forward to 25 or 30, but instead we're in the middle teens, and your adulthood came early for you.
Well, of course, responsibility and accountability, early on in life, that can produce something else.
Yeah, in the pre-show prep, we were talking about how you were, they had raised you in a wonderful environment of the Cleavers, but they were installing a certain degree of independence in
absolutely, yes.
As I'm doing my timer so we don't go
right.
over.
They wanted me to have the best opportunity to be successful in life, and the only way to do that is to learn how to be a person.
And
that's self-reliant.
Yes, but what they didn't plan on was you being ready so early.
No, that's a factor that got missed, I think. Yes, definitely.
So, as you mentioned in another episode, you've had 4 marriages. Your most recent one is your favorite one, which is a great story. We're going to get there, I promise. But the first 3 were not pleasant. They were trials.
They were definitely,
Yeah, they were
trials.
They were
That's
trials.
a good word.
There was a lot of negative, a lot of abuse, torture, a couple of kids.
Yeah.
But there was, you weren't prepared for what the world was going to give you.
No.
But the good Lord wanted to show you the full spectrum of the human condition.
Yeah.
And
I wanted to get at it at full throttle speed, didn't I?
Did.
I sure did.
So you didn't wade in.
I did not waste any time.
You didn't wade into the water. You dove right in.
No.
But before we get there, we wanted to talk about family values and Granny Fletcher. We've talked about family members in all the previous episodes. Granny Fletcher we wanted to end on. But there was a lot of direction in your life from Granny Fletcher.
Yes.
When an adult gives you their undivided attention and treats you like you're important, it matters.
It changes everything about that little person's mindset.
You as a
that
child.
You're special and important. Because when an adult gives you that kind of attention, you matter.
It's validating.
You're not just something that's in the way or that has to be contended with. You actually
you're not a byproduct of the marriage.
No. Well, and I say that tongue in cheek because now in this thrifty world that we're in, where everything's fast, it kind of creates that kind of mentality, I find.
Yeah, there's no depth because we're
so busy ticking off the boxes.
Short attention span theater.
Ooh, I like that. Short attention span theater.
That's why we only do 30-minute episodes.
Well, that's our attention span, let's be honest.
But it's true. We're immediate gratification. Our
Definitely.
internet has helped us with that. Digital world.
Yes.
But back then, there was depth in relationships.
Yes. And they literally poured into us. It mattered to them to be connected to us. She prayed into us. She prayed over us. It was just all about us.
And she
all
was one
about
of your
us.
spiritual leaders.
Oh, she
so to
is
speak.
my number one.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean my mother was wonderful, but my granny, it was a whole different
Yeah.
realm with my granny.
She
yeah.
lived it.
She did.
Didn't
she
just
did.
she walked the walk. It wasn't just talking and preaching.
She never stopped whispering and speaking under her breath. Never.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
4'11", and she never fell out of conversation except when she was asleep and unconscious, I
Yeah.
believe. Did she fall out of conversation with the Father?
Yeah.
She was just constantly communicating. And that's where I got that example of it's not a, well, I'm in trouble. Hey, God, what's up? I got some struggle. No.
I didn't need you before, but I need you
Right,
now.
but I need you now.
Yeah.
So no, her model was you don't fall out of connection with the Holy Father.
You know, and I'm going to make this about me for just a minute.
Please do.
But in my journey, in the last probably year, I took it for granted in my upbringing that when I wanted to talk to somebody, I could summon one of
Yes.
my spirit people was always available. Mm-hmm. Only in the last year and a half or so have I realized I have somebody. I say 20, but 18 hours a day. Mm-hmm. Except when maybe they're there when I'm sleeping, but I can tap in at any time.
Yes.
With any one of the multiple. I say 60 plus, but somebody is watching me all the time.
All the time.
All the time. I'm attached to somebody. and it's interesting because I took it for granted because I would ask a question and I'd get an answer. Ask a question, get an answer. Now, it's funny because in my personal world, I might be watching TV at 8 o'clock and I'll get a fragrance.
And I know that fragrance.
I know. I get a fragrance and I go, oh, shift change.
Yes, there you go.
And I can hear them chuckle. Yes, it's shift change. It's my turn.
Yes.
So they rotate around. For me, they rotate
Same.
around. They move around. I know.
We have people in charge of us up
We
there.
do. They're looking out. And
That's our team.
And I say message. They go, no,
No.
we're just here.
Just hanging.
But they're letting me know when there's a shift change or when it's somebody different. And that's really cool. And it was probably always like that. But
You just didn't pick up on it.
Right. The more in tuned I am, the more I realize, oh, shift change. And
Yes.
they're placing it with a fragrance. So
I was going to say, I like the fact that now that you get the fragrance.
yeah.
Because that's fairly new.
And I'm
isn't it?
recognizing the fragrance.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You recognize the people by the.
Yeah.
Do you not?
Well,
by
it's
the
like
fragrance?
I told someone it's like seeing a friend come down the hallway. Before they even hit the light, you knew who they
know
are.
who it is. Yeah.
Because you recognize the body or the figure or the way they walk or their gait. But yeah,
Instead of that, you just get a fragrance.
But it all happens here.
Just
but
like
it's,
that.
Yeah, so I get it. And she was always tapped in. And you
Yeah.
mentioned even at Piggly Wiggly.
Oh my goodness, yes. It's like, do you ever stop talking to him? Nope, never.
Yeah.
Never.
And she was good at counting her blessings.
Oh, yes. Oh, that was with the two thumbs spinning around
Yeah.
like this, just laying on her little belly. She had a little belly. And she'd have this grin on her face like this.
And her head would pivot.
And her head would pivot. She'd be looking at all of her blessings around in front of her eyes and just loving the Lord and loving Him for everything that she's looking at. She was just in a constant state of gratitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
So,
and-
what an example.
It is because
Kind of sets the bar way up here.
our guides and our angels, they like gratitude as well.
Very much so.
They do.
yes.
They like
Don't
to
we
know-
all?
Well, we do, but we forget
They
that,
do as
that
well.
they manifest things.
Because
Help
since
us.
they can't speak, it's
Yeah.
us giving gratitude to them that gives them that gift.
And it's encouraging when I give grace to them, they say thank you.
Yes.
And I'll say it like, the Animal House movie, thank you, may I have another?
Yeah. Please.
I got that one. Can I get
Yes,
another one?
yes,
And
yes.
they do, and they like to be encouraged and thanked. So
Yeah.
take the time out there to give grace to your spirit team.
Absolutely.
But your grandmother gave you life lessons, and one of the important ones are celebrations. But as we talk about balance, it's also life's tougher points. And
Yes.
you had a moment with her. She was a powerful in your world. She was a great spirit mentor, and she gave you a grounding. But she was more than Granny.
so much more.
Yeah.
Um,
But you yourself. This is later in life. we're kind of
We have to bounce around a little bit to get all the pieces connected.
Yeah,
so
but
that's
you
required.
studied to be an EMT.
Yes.
In the
my later
footsteps
years.
of your father.
I went to the let's see, what was that? I was 20. Was I 27 or 28? I guess.
Okay.
When I went to EMT school.
All right.
My grandmother was actively dying at the time, and I had gone through all the classroom stuff and had gotten to practicals, and that's where you work at the hospitals.
Right.
You work at on the ambulances and stuff, and they scheduled her funeral the day, or we call it celebration. Her celebration the day of orientation for practicals. Well, after you've been through all the classroom stuff and it's time for practicals, you have to have an orientation on how to behave and how to act on that ambulance in that hospital.
Right.
Yes, all of the protocols. Right. And without that orientation, you don't go on practicals.
Yeah.
So you're out of that class and you have to go back and start all over again.
It's not like they have it every Friday.
Oh, Lord, no.
Yeah.
No. So here I was in this dilemma with my most favorite person on the planet.
Which
to
was?
my heart, my granny.
Her celebration.
My celebration. My granny's celebration.
Her final goodbye.
Yes. And all of our family. I mean, when our family members pass, the entire town, the community, the county shows up.
Yeah.
So it's a really big deal, a big party. And I couldn't believe that I had gone so far through my EMT training to get to this juncture that now I had my granny's celebration and my orientation, and I had to choose between the two. Well, she was in heaven. So you know what she was saying to me. Yeah. You are going to go to that orientation.
You've worked too hard.
You've worked too hard.
Yeah. And I'm already gone.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And I'll be with you there, which, of course, she was there. I aced all of everything, the exam, the state exam, everything. But I will tell you that at that point, that was one of the hardest decisions I had to make. Isn't that strange that was at that place? But to have such a critical family member, person in your heart, in your spirit, that has been a part of your entire being, and to not be able to celebrate their life, that just felt so overbearing to me. Like, how am I going to live through that?
Right.
It felt life-threatening because of the way I was feeling about myself. So once I was able to come to terms with the fact that she said, you better get your butt over there to that orientation, because we've already been going through all this during your class. We've been walking this class together. So I had ultimately landed in a place of peace.
I wanted to give this. You wrote this, and I want you to get it. I say get it right.
Get it right.
Your words. But I am going to give you something I want to read verbatim because I wanted you to, in your words and in your voice, if you would just.
Sometimes I make sense, and y'all, just so you know, I haven't read this stuff in about 15 years, so it's somewhat new to me again as well.
See, it's called.
I
and now it's
see that.
coming back.
Yes,
yeah.
I see that.
And this is why I wanted you to read it verbatim, because it is.
That.
Even though we've chided before that you're not a writer.
No.
Your life in 51 pages doesn't do it justice. But there are some poignant things the way scripting
sometimes
can be.
Stuff just falls out on the page, doesn't it? You taught me how easy it is to love God, and staying in constant communication was the only way to live. Your level of belief instilled a foundation in me that has manifested into something truly world-changing. Thank you for your love for Jesus and trust in your ability to call upon and hear from him. You set the example of how available it is to everyone. I never heard you say a negative word about a soul. Do you know how rare that is, especially in an old person? No offense to our seniors, which I am one. Right. Did I mention I love this woman, and she modeled spiritual gifts like no other? Phew, that blood runs deep. Go, Granny F.
Yeah.
Go, Granny F. Yeah.
And
wow.
I wanted
Thank
you.
You.
You could have encapsulated it, for this episode.
Yeah.
But I wanted you to.
But that feels so good to read those words, because.
It was it fell out like you needed it to.
Yes.
And
yes.
it was beautiful.
Sinew to my bones. Yeah. Yeah.
She
was a lot in 411.
411, yeah. Foundationally, though, it was one of the building blocks in your faith and your communication. And we talked last week about how you have to decide when it comes to living out loud or living in private with your faith, what's it going to be?
Yeah.
And she was one of the reasons you chose to live out loud.
Out loud, yes.
Yeah.
And see, and let me add this to it. My parents, as beautiful as their relationship and their faith was, theirs was not as out loud as my grandparents were. I mean, I saw them Bible study together, my parents, but as far as like out loud, my grandparents set that example.
Yeah.
So I was on the journey of figuring out how come my home examples were different than my grandparent examples.
Well, we know now as adults,
So,
and your dad was an EMT. He saw the worst of things.
Yes,
sometimes.
he did.
So
he did.
That
changes
skews your
it a little
view.
bit. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
We talked about. Let's see. We because we're heading into your first marriage at the age of 16. One of the things I wanted to bring up was shame is one of the strongest weapons the dark has against us.
Yes.
We can screw up, forgive ourselves, but if we don't truly let ourselves off the hook, which self-forgiveness is one of the most difficult things to get to in life.
Why is it so easy to forgive other people and not self?
When we don't let ourselves off the hook, the shame moves in to cripple us.
And does it ever?
It does.
Yes.
And this is where you're headed in your life. Which now we know, but at the time you didn't know.
Clueless.
But yeah, Granny Fletcher was amazing. That you had that background. You later in life you had to decide on making that choice. But what we did learn from her is the more light, the better.
Yeah, always.
Stay forgiven in other people's lives, but in yours too.
Yes,
you
absolutely.
Have to.
Self-forgiven.
Yeah, self-forgiven. So growing up as a tomboy, you start developing into a woman, and man, it's trying on outfits and turning in. Your curves are coming in.
And I hated all of it.
And
hated all of that.
It had to be a struggle because you were
was
rooted in a
tomboy.
tomboy. Yeah,
I was the only
But
son my daddy never had.
Your society wants you to be more.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes, I was definitely a boy. I mean, a girl. Golly. Okay, that's not a Freudian slip. But yes, I completely didn't. The makeup, the hair, the things that they care about.
Yeah.
That was different for me.
And you learn a little bit of the female.
I had a
role,
sister.
From your sister.
And my mom.
And in school, there's gender responsibilities and things. But you even struggled. I remember the story about the first time you pushed a boy was the first time.
Oh, yes,
you
that
went to
first
hug
grade.
and he
was rejected.
He rejected, and you responded with the same. And that's. But again, it's those roles. I was just looking at your first kiss on the playground. But guys, the dynamics change because when you're younger, everybody gets along, and then you start having the attractions,
drawing those lines,
and you start defining boundaries and things.
Well, fear comes in, doesn't it?
Yeah, fear again, the unknown, and wondering where do I fit in all this.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to assimilate when you're trying to find yourself and fit in at the same time.
It's a lot of pressure on these kids, isn't it?
Boy, howdy, it is. It's not any better today.
Not at all.
But,
in fact, I can't even imagine.
With social media, especially.
Dear Lord in heaven.
At the time of this taping, I am not on social media.
Oh, no, you're not.
I'm
you're
not.
I'm I am, but
you
he's
can't
not.
find me because I live a very private life.
You're incognito.
Yes.
He's famous, but he don't want to be famous.
I live off the grid.
Yeah, there you go.
I do.
That's a good way to say that.
I think it's gonna. I think my time is coming.
It
but
is.
But for now,
I'm dragging you everywhere with me, sir.
Yeah, I'm a best kept secret sometimes.
There you go.
But there's a reason, and there's a time coming. But I've watched you and others, and I see the kids on social media, and I can't even imagine navigating that.
Just having cameras, okay? Let's just say.
Right.
Imagine riding on the bus with the football players and heading to the game. Yeah, no.
Yep.
No.
You're right.
No cameras.
Well, at the age of 16, you were young womanhood, and you learned to dress like it, the makeup and the hair and all this, and you had your high hop awakening with the other element of society, the after hours people, and it intrigued you. you started
I
being
wanted
exposed
to know more about that life I didn't know nothing about.
Yes, and boy, did you dive into that. At 16, you decided, and I wrote it down here. By 16, I was ready to share a place and expenses with someone in order to get out from under the house rules. And we opened the show with independence. You were being led to independence, and now you wanted to practice that.
Yes.
Because you were convinced you were ready.
I was good at it.
Yep. I have been trained properly. I'm ready to go out on my own.
I'm ready to spread my wings and fly.
So, how did we meet our first husband?
Well, we went to school together.
Okay.
We went to school together.
Sure.
We're in high school, and he's 2 years older than I am.
Okay.
2 years older.
So he was.
I didn't really hang out that much with. I mean, I did have friends my age, but I got along really well. The ones I wanted to date were older.
Yeah.
I'll just say it
old
that
soul
way.
way, yeah.
And we dated a little bit, and then we broke up, and I was thinking that this was a point that we were broken up, and maybe we had just become friends again or whatever instead of dating. But it was just a matter of I made the decision that I was tired of being under the house rules. So I literally picked up the phone and called him and said, "Hey, your parents divorced. You're mad because daddy got the house and mama got the apartment.
Yeah.
So you want to get out of your house, and I need to be out of my house because obviously I'm too grown to be living with my parents. And so why don't we just get married? And that way they can't do anything.
Yeah.
What are they going to do?" He said, "Well, why don't we just go to Oklahoma?" And I said, "I can't go to Oklahoma. I don't belong in Oklahoma. We have to do it here."
That's north of the border. That's
Right?
too far.
I can't go to Oklahoma. So, yeah, then we went, and that was what it was. It was a logistical decision
Yeah. Yeah.
to gain independence.
Again, logic. Yeah.
Let's get married. That made perfect
That
sense.
yeah.
God
Let's
bless
do this.
America. No, it did not. But in my silly 16-year-old mind, it did.
Yeah. Your mom didn't.
And he
take it
said
well.
yes.
Yeah. He accepted your proposal.
He did. He thought it was a great idea too. Yeah.
Mom didn't
So-
take it well.
No, not. She didn't lose it or anything like that. But I mean, it just washed. I mean, you could see her heart breaking. I could see her heart breaking right in front of me, because she knew me.
She cried for 3 months, off and on.
Yes,
but she just
and I didn't know that until long. It hurt
Yeah.
my feelings because she didn't act upset.
Oh, okay.
Like, she didn't act upset. She acted a little surprised,
Yeah.
obviously. But she didn't get upset because my mother didn't get upset about things. I mean, she just
Even keel.
faced
Yeah.
everything and just with the same, the same mentality. So, I found out way after the fact when we had a conversation because I was so sad that I felt like she didn't care. Why didn't she make a fuss? Why didn't she try to stop me?
Right. Well, she didn't talk you into it or out of it.
No.
She let you practice your independence.
Yes.
Yeah. Not
And
that you would have been open to counseling.
Probably not. But you know what she did say to me is she said, the reason that I had to let you do that is because I already knew by the event that happened when you were 14
Yeah.
with your dad how much y'all were alike.
Yeah.
It was not going to end well between the two
Right.
of you.
Yeah.
So she said, the father, I felt the father say, trust me, I have her. And she said, and then I cried for 3 months.
Your wedding day wasn't magical. It had its
Was it
after-
magical?
after a-
That's an understatement.
after 3 months of prep.
Right?
A 16-year-old makes great wedding plans.
Oh, we do. Oh my goodness. We made those little roses that you put the bird seed down in the roses and throw it at you like that and it flings it. Anyway, that's a long time ago.
I wasn't nearly, sorry, Mom, but I wasn't nearly as ready as I thought.
Not even close.
God using the experience for his glory, my life spiraled from the honeymoon night on.
From the honeymoon night on. That was tough.
So tell us about your first day.
My first day.
Your wedding day.
The wedding day. Well, the wedding day went off pretty well other than the fact that most of us, we set our wedding dates based on our menstrual cycle.
Okay.
Because who wants to be on their honeymoon night on their menstrual cycle?
Okay.
So that's how we set the date. So and then we get to the day of the wedding and all the stress and stuff leading up to it. Well, it shifted.
Yeah.
So there comes my menstrual cycle on my wedding day. And being these immature kids that we were,
Sure.
we had no experience in this area at all. And the honeymoon night just went completely south. Just completely south.
It changed your dress too.
Completely, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I we get to the honeymoon suite, and of course, I'm exhausted because weddings are exhausting, and so I'm getting out of my dress and all that, and I'm like, oh crap, this is a big problem, because I'm thinking, oh, maybe it'll just hold off long enough, that we can consummate the marriage, and I just couldn't. Too much pain, too much everything. Yep. And so
cramping, the whole bit.
The whole deal. And he got pissed off, of course, because, it's your wedding night. You have
He
expectations.
knew what to expect.
Yes, and so did I.
Yeah.
I wanted that too, but no. So he just decided that it was my fault that I had started my period, apparently.
He was 2 years older. He was 18.
Yes, he was 18.
At the time, it was legal to drink.
It was legal, yep. So he goes, thank you for that. So he goes down to the bar at the hotel where we're staying, and proceeds to tie one on, and leaves me up in the up in the honeymoon suite, crying.
Yeah.
I mean, just crying. I'm crushed, because talk about rejection. The fact that I don't feel like having sex with you doesn't mean you should abandon me,
right. Yeah.
and go down and have your own party and leave me with nothing, except my pain and my feelings of rejection.
Yep. And so he said, leave you to yourself. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And you didn't see him until the next morning.
No, that's correct.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was not off to a rip-roaring start, was it? No, not even close. Not even close to a good start.
And did it get better?
There were great times. There really were. There were great times because we were great friends.
Sure.
We were great friends. And I'm still friends with him. First time I experienced sexual assault. I didn't even know that was possible in a marriage.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could. That was
and
even
your
a
limited
thing.
exposure, sure.
Yeah. I had no idea because I've never been exposed to anything like sexual assault before. And anyway, so that's things just kind of progressed there, and the insecurity that was already in him from his parents' broken marriage and everything. Of course, you bring what you came from, brought all that mess right in there, and the insecurity is ultimately what fractured our relationship. His insecurity, not mine.
I wanted to be clear.
Thank you. Yes.
Did you continue to go to school?
I went to school until he quit his job. Okay. And when he quit his job, came home and said, I just couldn't take it anymore. He kept telling me what to do. And I'm like, it's your boss. That's what he's supposed to do, is tell you what to do. And he's like, no, I'm not taking that shit anymore. So I was like, okay, well, so here I had a home that my parents had put the down payment on as our
did they? Okay.
Yeah, as our wedding
gift. Sure.
Yep, put the down payment on. So who's going to pay for this thing now that he's not working? I was only working part-time over here at Kelly Springfield Tire Company.
Springfield.
On Kelly Boulevard.
Yeah.
A big, huge Kelly Springfield Tire Company. And so I was doing payroll for them and bookkeeping. And so I had to kick it in and go full time and drop out of school. And that was the end of the first semester of my junior year in high school. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So making all these mature grown up decisions that I just had to get out of the rules of my house.
Sure. Well, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. Well, let me just put my foot up there and shoot a hole in the middle of it, because that's pretty much what I did by getting out of the sanctity of my house.
Something you wrote was you learned a husband can rape his wife, and it wasn't against the law.
Nope.
It's different now, but
very. And I was instrumental in helping that law get passed, by the way.
Oh, good. Okay. Story for another time. Let's do that.
Pain produces beautiful things.
You mentioned that you learned how to be driven by fear rather than faith, which was new for you.
Very new. I had no idea how to do that.
For years, you've been driven by faith, or lived in, survived, thrived in faith, therefore driven by faith. But here, you're with his abuse and things and temper. Was he drinking much?
He wasn't a big drinker. Okay. No. But his thing was the fear.
But his fear and yours.
Yeah.
He passed it on down to you.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Well, because he was so unpredictable.
Okay. Funny thing happens when you lose your safety.
Yeah.
You wrote, I transitioned from a beautiful bubble of a childhood to a dark, mad dose of reality. The loss of my hope was instant.
Absolutely instant.
Define that. Relive that for a moment. We're not going to stay there.
No,
but
that's okay. The instant was the loss of what I had believed and been shown and known as a husband and wife, and what that was.
What that looked
and
like.
should be.
Yeah.
And can be.
And that's what you were holding on
And
to.
that's what I was expecting.
Yeah.
And that died.
Vanished.
Absolute into thin air. Yep. And there I was left with, okay, so everything can happen. Everything. Little did I know at that time what all that meant. But anyway, but yeah, that's that moment where that shift took place, and
Yeah.
a bigger chunk of innocence fell away.
How long did that first marriage last?
4.
4 years. Okay.
Yeah.
But history would repeat itself.
Oh, of course.
And Mark Twain, and I'll say this, Mark Twain said, history may not always repeat itself, but it often rhymes.
Oh, does it ever? I love that. I forgot about that. Yeah, that was Twain, wasn't it?
So
But that's so poignant
4 years
and
for that
proper.
one. Did we have kids in the first one? We
Oh, gosh,
we were too
no.
young.
Oh, I was all about career. I had no desire to ever have children.
Your career at 18. But
yeah,
2 years of
starting at
marriage,
6, yeah.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah. Safety equals freedom to me.
Yes, it does.
You realize that as you grew into not living in fear,
Yes.
you just wanted to be safe.
I just wanted to be safe.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
And without it, I became a diehard survivor.
Correct. It's called a profession. I call it a profession.
Surviving?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it locks onto you and it becomes a lifestyle.
It
Not
does,
because of anything other than it's a culmination of all of those experiences and the effects of those experiences. So you just automatically move into a survivor mentality.
And you wrote here, what happens when you become one of those is you learn to do, all caps, anything and everything it takes to stay alive.
Absolutely.
Because it is survival.
You will sell
Not just getting
yourself
by.
to the devil.
Yep. And then you kind of did, because the next thing you wrote
I
was
totally
my
did.
favorite coping mechanism was cocaine, sex, pot, crank, anything speedy.
Anything.
And
Anything that will take me out of the reality of what I'm having
right,
to live in.
right,
Yes.
and tap into something else, anything else.
Yes.
And so those became your coping mechanisms.
Yes, yes.
And then and was that through all the last of those years together?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
It was
Yeah.
yeah. So all of those, the drugs and the accessories
Yes.
to that lifestyle.
Yes.
Was it easy to hold a job? Was it for him or you?
Oh,
or?
I've never had a problem holding
Okay.
a job.
All right.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was functional.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was a very functional druggie. Drinking was never my thing, but I did love the other things.
Never
yeah.
smoked anything more than a little cocaine laced
No,
joint, and
yeah.
some really great German hashish once. But
Really great German hashish. Yeah, but that's because the first one was in the Air Force, so we had access to some
I was
really
going
good
to say
stuff.
you had access to possibilities with the military connection, but it's hard to get out once you're in, I guess.
It is.
I'm
It is.
speaking for you.
Well, when what started you on it was pain, fear, and trauma,
Yeah.
all that wraps up together. So that's where I learned that until you get to the root of the reason and the need of those coping mechanisms, you're going to constantly need them.
Yeah, just to get by.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the new norm.
Mm-hmm.
The new norm.
Yes.
We're going to end pretty soon here, but the one time I tried an elephant tranquilizer.
Wow.
So you were.
I thought I was going to die.
you were still. I mean, you were in that mode, but you were still experimenting.
Experimenting, yes.
Find out where
yes,
the
yes.
boundaries
Well,
are, and
yeah.
you found one.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. I had no idea you could get so close to death and not die.
Yeah.
Not at that point. I had no idea. Because I'd stayed with the lower grade
Sure,
things.
yeah, the stuff that was
I
available.
was scared,
Yeah.
for heaven's sake.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a whole different experience.
So as we're wrapping this up and kind of teasing forward, you had 4 years in that difficult.
The first one, yeah.
The first one.
Mm-hmm.
In a recap and a tease to keep people engaged, what's coming up in the next couple of marriages? Like I said, history rhymes.
Yes, it does. The next couple of marriages.
What can we look forward to?
We will we will learn so much more about fear, so much more about coping mechanisms, and so much more about the human condition, and the effects.
And children get involved.
Oh boy, do children get involved? Yes, because I had no intention of ever bringing an innocent child into this world.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
And there was a specific event that changed that drastically.
Yes. And was it a thought, and I'm speaking out of what people have said before, bringing a child in is going to help us heal? Was that ever a thought, or was
No,
it just
I
an
was the
accident?
opposite.
You were-
I was never going to
you
bring
knew
a child in
you
here.
knew your childhood. You knew better than to bring.
I
a
had
child
no
in.
desire.
Okay.
None of my friends were ever happy from little bitty. I
Yeah.
did not want. There was enough unwanted children out there. If I ever got that desire
Yeah.
to be a mom,
Yeah.
I would just go buy me one.
Right.
And that's the way I
Pick
felt. I
up
would
one
just
that's
go and
already
pick
here.
one out.
And again, going back way back, you had been in orphanages and children.
Yes, and I
so
loved
they
them.
needed help. So
They
that,
did, so that's why I knew there was enough of them.
Yeah.
And thank you for bringing that back around.
Yeah.
That's why I knew if I ever got that maternal thing
Yeah.
my sister had that I didn't, that's exactly.
Just pick one up.
I'll just
already
go
available.
grab. I'll grab 2 or 3 if I really,
Yeah.
if I want babies, I'll
Yeah.
go get some. There's plenty that
But you
nobody
weren't going
wants.
to bring anything like that into the environment.
gosh,
you were now
no.
embedded in.
That's right. I'm a career girl. I'm out here to save the world. I'm
Yeah.
not here to do anything except that.
Yeah. So we're moving on into adulthood.
Yeah.
Your first marriage was nothing like you were.
No. From 16 to 20.
That you were shown.
Hmm.
But yeah, you were young.
I was, yeah.
Young.
And we'll be talking about mixed families, I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
two separate families coming together and,
How well that works.
Oh, how fun.
Blending
It's so
is always a
fun.
key to
And
success.
sometimes they'll literally drop them off on the street for you. Yeah. They will drop them right out there on the street for you.
And drive off.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of neat stuff coming
There's
up,
more
guys.
real life coming.
Oh, my word.
Yeah, more real life coming.
Yeah, stay tuned. It gets flavorful. Just gonna call it flavorful. Yeah.
Always appreciate your candor and
Thank
your
you.
and your vulnerability. There is you will learn in your own life, as an example here, there is great strength in being vulnerable.
Yes.
It's a journey to get there, but once you do, there's strength in getting there.
Very much so.
And it's a good example for others. Some of the strongest people I know are the most vulnerable people I know.
They are. Yeah.
But it doesn't. You wouldn't think it's that way. But it is that way.
See, it doesn't make any
in reality,
sense,
it
but
doesn't make
yeah.
sense, but it actually works.
Yeah. Sets us free. It really does.
Thanks for the stories. Thanks for the show. Appreciate you being here as always.
Love you.
Hoping you're enjoying this. Be sure to
Yes.
share and talk about it with your friends. I mean, there's a book club out there. We could be a podcast
Yes,
club,
we
and
could
talk
be.
about it.
Let's be a
But
podcast.
I think there's
podcast club.
elements that every one of you, I think, are going to be able to relate to in the coming episodes.
Coming year.
Her coming years is where I was going. I blended those two.
I know, but I
together.
like the way you scare them like that. The coming year. No.
We're glad you were part of the show today.
Yes,
Thank you
thanks,
for
y'all.
engaging with us.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you being there. This is Storytime with Frog, fully relying on
Yes.
God. I'm Rob Dalton.
And Veda McGregor.
For now, it's a ribbit,
Ribbit.
and we'll see you the next
Come back
episode.
next time.
Okay. We'll
Bye.
be here.
Yeah,
All
we
right.
will.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next
Take
time.
care. Bye-bye.